You have exactly 105 days before the first darkness is unleashed. This video could be the key to your survival. Pay attention to who has come back from the dead to bring you an urgent warning. My name is Mike Ciudor. I am 55 years old, and for over 3 decades I have made the back of a truck my home. I have traveled the roads of the southern United States, where the highway has become my refuge, my source of income, and in a way, my faithful companion. I have never been one to attend church every Sunday or memorize verses, but deep down in my being, I have always felt the certainty that there is something greater that protects us, something that transcends this endless asphalt that surrounds us. I live alone in a cozy little house on the outskirts of Nashville. 8 years ago, my wife Carol left this world due to an aneurysm, and since then, life has taken a different turn. My 2 children have started their own families and now live far away, which further accentuates my loneliness. The truth is that this feeling accompanies me, and on many nights, I find myself alone in the stillness of the house. A cup of cold coffee in my hands and the news resonating with tales of wars, tragedies, and politicians in constant struggle, while people suffered in silence. In those moments, I found myself looking out the window, reflecting on how fragile everything around us seems, as if the fate of the entire world were tied to invisible threads that could break at any moment. It was the morning of August 15th, 2025, and I was driving my truck down a road lined with trees. The sky was clear, the radio was playing a soft melody, and my thoughts were solely focused on the delivery of the goods I was scheduled to make a few hours later. It was believed that it would be an ordinary trip, like so many others he had taken. However, life has the strange ability to transform in an instant. Suddenly, an imposing moose appeared in the middle of the road, defying all logic. Without thinking, I turned the steering wheel sharply, but at that speed and with the weight of the truck, control slipped from my hands. I remember the screeching of the tires on the asphalt, the weight of the steering wheel in my hands, and then suddenly, the brutal impact. In an instant, I was no longer inside the wrecked cabin. I floated above the scene, watching my own body trapped among the debris, while cars stopped and people rushed to help me. I watched as the flashing red lights of the ambulance approached, but surprisingly, I felt no pain. Rather, it was as if I had been freed from a heavy burden that I had been carrying on my shoulders for a long time. All those worries, guilt, and fears that had tormented me suddenly vanished, leaving me with an unexpected feeling of lightness. It was in that moment that I perceived a golden light that strongly drew me in. An indescribable warmth enveloped me, as if its glow pulled my soul away from the tumult of the road. I felt no fear. For the first time since Carol's death, I experienced a true sense of peace. The light gradually intensified until suddenly, he appeared before me. Jesus was there, in front of me. He looked nothing like the paintings or old movies I had contemplated. He was real. He was alive, emanating an impressive strength. But what struck me the most were his eyes. When he looked at me, it seemed he knew each of my mistakes, every weakness, every night I had cried in solitude. And despite everything, he loved me. I tried to speak, but I could only cry. They were not tears of sadness, but of a profound relief, as if after 55 years I could finally breathe for real. He put his hand on my shoulder, and in that moment a wave of love washed over me, a love so immense that it surpassed any other experience I had ever lived. Not even the deep bond I shared with Carol could compare. It was as if I were wrapped in the warm light of the sun. An enveloping warmth filled everything around me. It was at that moment when Jesus spoke with a serene voice that seemed to penetrate deep into my being. "Have you dedicated your life to serving more than you imagine?" he asked. It made me reflect on the paths taken, day and night, bringing food, medicine, and above all, hope to families I had never met. You didn't call it ministry, but in reality, it was. Each delivery became an act of love towards my people, and that tore me apart inside. For me, it had always been simply a job, to pick up the load, take it to its destination, and continue on my way. But at that moment in front of him, I understood that there was something sacred, even in the lonely kilometers I had traveled. Jesus then adopted a more serious tone. "I need to show you something, Mike. Difficult times are coming. The hearts of the people will be tested like never before. It is crucial that you observe what is coming so you can warn them. In an instant, we found ourselves outside of that golden light that enveloped us. We were standing on what seemed like an imposing mountain, and before us unfolded all of the United States, as if I were gazing at a vast living map, pulsating before my eyes. From the summit of that mountain, my eyes rested on every corner of the country. The cities and towns spread out before me, their lights shining in the darkness like stars fixed to the ground. At that moment, Jesus looked at me and, with a serene voice, uttered the word, "Confirmeza." "Mike, tell me, what do you see?" At first, everything seemed normal. The constant glow of civilization, that electric pulse that never ceases. However, upon closer inspection, you realize that there are dark shadows gathering over some of the major cities. They were not just simple storm clouds. It was something much denser and darker, a presence that pressed down on my chest just by looking at it. "Lord, what is this?" I asked, feeling a shiver run down my spine. "It is the first of 3 great events of darkness that will descend upon this nation," he responded. "Each of these challenges will last exactly 3 days and 3 nights. During this time, the heart of my people will be tested. Will they trust in me or rely on their own strength? The first of these challenges will begin in just 4 months, and thinking about it makes my insides churn. 4 months. Are you referring to this year?" Jesus nodded seriously. "On December 21st, 2025, during the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, it will transform into the 3 darkest days in the history of the United States." As I spoke, I saw it unfold before my eyes. The darkness began in California, but it was not just any blackout. It was as if someone had poured a thick layer of black paint over the sky, covering city after city in a gloomy shroud. Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Denver. One after another, they will be engulfed in darkness. This first shadow will be the result of an unprecedented solar storm. Jesus explained it clearly. The electromagnetic pulse will be so powerful that it will wipe out transformers across the western United States. From the vast Pacific Ocean to the majestic Rocky Mountains, at 3:33 in the morning, Pacific time, everything will plunge into darkness. An indescribable chaos will be unleashed the moment the lights go out. The cars, surprised by the sudden twilight, will come to an abrupt stop in the middle of the road. Not only did they shut down, but they also became completely inoperable. In a matter of seconds, the electronic systems melted down. The traffic lights stopped working, plunging the streets into chaos. The mobile phone towers, once bustling, fell into a deep silence. Those devices that have always been part of our modern life simply shut down, leaving us in a disconcerting void. Mike, no vehicle manufactured after 1980 can start. Smartphones, tablets, and computers have been reduced to rubble. Even many modern flashlights have stopped working, as they rely on electronic chips. Not even the solar panels manage to work, as the controllers will also burn out. I observed the angels more closely, just as Jesus asked me to. It was then that I saw the precise moment when the city, shining like a Christmas tree, sank into absolute darkness. The crowd rushed through the streets, overwhelmed by panic. The elevators, packed with people, became stuck, leaving many trapped inside, unable to call for help. Meanwhile, hospitals struggled to maintain calm, trying to activate generators, but their control systems also succumbed to chaos. And suddenly, everything stopped. "But how will people be able to understand what happened?" I asked them. "They won't understand it right away," he replied. "Before, we had analog radios that ran on batteries. Nowadays, almost everything is digital, and most will be lost in the impact. Only a few old radios and some amateur radio operators prepared for this type of event will be able to establish communication." What happened next left me frozen. In less than 6 hours, lives were already being lost. It was not violence that caused the chaos, but the collapse of the life support systems that stopped functioning. In the hospitals, patients were engaged in a desperate struggle to obtain manual ventilation. Dialysis centers closed their doors, leaving many without the treatment they so desperately needed. Moreover, diabetics found themselves in a critical situation, without access to the refrigeration necessary to preserve their insulin. Jesus observed sadly and exclaimed, "In just 24 hours, tens of thousands will lose their lives. Most will be elderly, sick individuals and those who depend on technology to survive." However, he also noticed something hopeful. In certain neighborhoods, there were people who were prepared. In a nostalgic corner of the past, families with classic cars from the 70s still drove through the streets, enjoying the magic of the old. These vehicles, which seemed to tell stories from times past, were equipped with hand-crank radios that filled the air with melodies of yesteryear. Oil lamps illuminated homes with a warm and welcoming light, while wood stoves provided heat and comfort on cold nights. In this endearing environment, the neighbors came together in a spirit of solidarity, sharing what they had and taking care of one another. It was a community where help and support were the order of the day, creating bonds that transcended time and difficulties. "This is my village," Jesus heard. "Some came to me through dreams, others guided by prophecies, and others simply by the wisdom I planted in their hearts to prepare them." "But Lord," I replied with a trembling voice, "how can anyone be ready for something so grand?" Jesus smiled, radiating a peace that seemed to envelop everything around him. "Let me show you how to prepare and what signs to pay attention to," he said in a serene voice. In an instant, we were no longer just observing from above. He was present, immersed in every scene, feeling every detail as if he were really there. He began his account by describing the weather. He announced that this storm would manifest through signs in the sky on December 15th, 2025, or 6 days before that date. Auroras can even be observed as far south as Texas. When people see green lights dancing in the sky over cities like Dallas and Atlanta, they will have a 6-day window to make final preparations. But what kind of preparations, sir? Jesus' voice took on a firm, almost imposing tone. "You must convey this just as I am going to show you," he said with determination. "When people behold the sunrises of December 15th, they will only have a few days left, and it is crucial that they act without delay." He began to list, and each word resonated within me as if it were etched in fire. First, all containers that can be filled with water must be filled. Bathtubs, barrels, bottles, buckets. The pumps will stop working, and the repair could take months. Secondly, it is essential to stock up on non-perishable foods, such as beans, rice, canned goods, salt, and honey. In a matter of hours, the supermarkets will be deserted. And thirdly, make sure to withdraw cash. A lot of cash, as cards will not be accepted. ATMs will stop working. The banks will remain closed. In this new scenario, only paper will have value. He paused, allowing the words to sink in deeply, and then continued. Fourth, it is essential to ensure that transportation is resistant to electromagnetic pulses. Automobiles manufactured before 1980, bicycles, and even horses, if they have them. Those who do not have any of these means of transportation will be forced to stay where they are. Fifth point, it is essential to gather simple devices that run on batteries but do not contain chips. Old lanterns, analog radios, and basic tools. Supplies of matches, candles, lanterns, firewood, and blankets. Winter in the United States can be relentless, and without electricity, many will face extreme cold. Additionally, it is essential to have medications. Those who require medications daily should ensure they have a minimum supply of 3 months. Pharmacies, unfortunately, will not be able to operate. As I shared my thoughts, I began to visualize the days ahead. On the second day, fear transformed into violence. The crowds in the city soon realized that this was not an ordinary situation. I observed how they were robbing stores while people fought over the last packages of food. Gangs took over the streets of Los Angeles, turning them into a real battlefield. The police and even the National Guard made efforts to contain the situation, but most lacked the proper equipment. It was at that moment that Jesus turned his gaze towards the interior of the country. Rural areas, although they will manage to hold on a little longer, will not be able to achieve freedom. The wells equipped with electric pumps will dry up, leaving many without access to water. The modern tractors, which once made work in the fields easier, will become inoperable. The harvest will stop, and food will not reach the cities, creating an imminent crisis. In the face of this desperate situation, many will be forced to embark on long walks in search of help, only to discover that the cities will have nothing to offer them. On the third day, I witnessed something even deeper. Millions of people were beginning to regain their sanity and realize that this was not just a passing moment. Panic was taking hold of them, but amidst all the horror, I also witnessed something wonderful that was happening. The churches that had prepared themselves transformed into true islands of hope. Jesus revealed to me a congregation in Denver that had accumulated water, food, and old equipment. They had an analog radio, through which they transmitted messages of encouragement and practical advice. They fed hundreds of people, formed teams dedicated to visiting the elderly, took care of children, and provided basic medical care at times when hospitals could not operate. "This is how my church should be," Jesus murmured, with a slight pain reflected in his gaze. It was not simply a Sunday club, but a true living body prepared to serve in difficult times. Intrigued, I asked him, how did they manage to have provisions when everything was paralyzed? To which he replied firmly, "Because they paid attention to my warnings. They spent months guarding that treasure, not only for their own benefit, but also to be able to help others." The vision began to fade, and suddenly they found themselves again at the top of the mountain, gazing at the entire country that stretched out before them. It was then that Jesus spoke in a solemn voice. The first period of darkness will conclude exactly in 72 hours. On the morning of December 24th, at 3:33 a.m., some areas will begin to regain electricity, but the devastation will be devastating. It is estimated that 2 million lives will be lost and the economy will be plunged into ruin. Many will think that this was the worst disaster, but they are mistaken. I watched it with a heavy heart, feeling a deep unease. It was then that I noticed another shadow forming. This time it was rising from the east. Jesus explained that the second darkness will arrive 8 months later, on August 21st, 2016. It will not be a natural event, but a meticulously orchestrated cyber attack, complemented by acts of physical sabotage. The adversaries of the United States will carry out their offensive at a critical moment, when the Western energy system is still vulnerable after the devastating catastrophe of December. This new darkness was different, and in some ways, even more terrifying than the previous one. It was not the result of the force of nature, but of human malice. Code villainies spread like poison through the electrical systems that still remained standing. Meanwhile, groups of saboteurs launched physical attacks against transformers and substations at strategic points across the country. At midnight, Eastern Time, they will take over power plants that stretch from New York to Texas. Jesus spoke in a deep and serious voice. But it won't just be a digital invasion, Mike. There will be terrorist groups attacking critical infrastructure in multiple locations, and large cities will suffer simultaneously. I watched in horror as the dawn sky lit up with explosions in New York, Boston, and Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, Detroit, Houston, Dallas, Nashville, and Charlotte were not just cities. They were the beating heart of a vast electrical network. In each of them, there were substations and control centers, where dedicated engineers tirelessly fought to keep the grid running. These places, filled with technology and human effort, were the backdrop of a constant battle for stability and the energy that powered millions. This time it won't just be the lights that go out. Jesus continued in a grave voice. The water systems, natural gas, major internet hubs, and emergency communications will also be affected. For 3 whole days, the eastern 2/3 of the country will be completely isolated from civilization. What happened next took my breath away. Thousands of people were trapped in the subway with no way out. In the intensive care units, patients were fighting for their lives, while the emergency generators were also failing. However, the most terrifying aspect was not the destruction itself, but the absolute collapse of social order. Since it was a meticulously planned attack and not a natural disaster, the fear will intensify considerably. Jesus explained it clearly. People will live in terror of the possibility of new waves of violence, convinced that foreign invasions are imminent. Before continuing, just one request. Subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot to continue. The panic that erupted surpassed even that of the first darkness. I watched as martial law was proclaimed, but the military seemed to be completely blind and deaf, unable to establish communication. The police, for their part, struggled to contain the riots, but they lacked radios, computers, and any other means that would allow them to coordinate. In various localities, armed citizens decided to join together in militias with the purpose of protecting their neighborhoods. However, in other places, criminal gangs managed to take over entire districts. But once again, Jesus revealed to me a different perspective. Churches that had assimilated the lesson of the first darkness. He observes this in Richmond, Virginia, he pointed out. The building was surrounded by hundreds of people. After December, the entire congregation made the decision to prepare. They now have enough food and water to feed 2,000 people for an entire month. Before we continue, just one request. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. Additionally, they have medications, safety equipment, and secure communication channels. It is fascinating to observe how the church has transformed into a small town in itself. They were organized into work fronts. There were teams dedicated to clearing debris, makeshift doctors attending to the injured, groups on guard watching against looters, and others joining in prayer day and night. Notice the difference, Mike, Jesus told him. They did not keep what they had just for themselves. They opened their doors to all those who needed it. That is the essence that distinguishes my church from those groups that only focus on their own survival. My people are preparing to serve, not just to save themselves. This second darkness lasted for exactly 3 days, but the recovery was much slower than the first time. Jesus revealed to me that in some regions, restoring electricity could take more than a year. The devastation was so immense that in some areas they would be forced to rebuild the electrical system from the ground up. The number of fatalities exceeded 8 million people. My heart was filled with sadness. Lord, how could you allow this? How could you let so many innocent souls lose their lives? Jesus turned to me, tears shining in his eyes. Mike, he said with a trembling voice, I am not the one who causes these situations, but I do take advantage of them. This nation has distanced itself from me, choosing to trust in technology and governments rather than in its true creator. These trials will bring many people back to my heart, individuals who otherwise would never have sought my company. It was at that moment when he revealed something to me that left me completely frozen to the bone. Suddenly, the scene before my eyes transformed completely. I traveled across the country and witnessed an astonishing phenomenon. Churches were flourishing at an impressive rate. Those who used to mock believers striving to strengthen their faith now found themselves begging to learn how to cultivate a genuine relationship with God. I witnessed baptisms in rivers and lakes, as many temples had been destroyed. And Jesus, with a voice overflowing with compassion, spoke these words. In these dark times, more people will find genuine faith than in the midst of 50 years of joint preaching. Suffering possesses extraordinary power. It strips away from their hands what they believed was essential and reveals to them what they truly need. Then the third vision came, one that surpassed the previous two in intensity. The third darkness will manifest on January 15, 2027, Jesus announced. This time, the entire continental territory of the United States will be engulfed in darkness simultaneously. What I witnessed was truly terrifying. A solar storm, 3 times more intense than the one that struck in 2025, hit our planet at the precise moment when terrorist cells, spread throughout the country, launched coordinated attacks against thousands of targets. Jesus began to explain seriously. All power plants, all substations, and all main transformers will be destroyed or inoperable in the first hour. For 3 days and 3 nights, from Alaska to Florida, and from Maine to California, there will be no electricity anywhere. The magnitude of the event exceeded any expectations. With no electricity anywhere in the country, transportation systems collapsed. Trains were left stranded in the middle of nowhere, while airports turned into true refugee camps filled with trapped passengers. The interstate highways transformed into true metal graveyards, where abandoned cars lined up along hundreds of kilometers. The devastation was overwhelming and the death toll would exceed 30 million. Jesus, with his voice choked by sadness, uttered these words, allowing the weight of reality to envelop him. And most will not succumb to violence, but to the cold, to hunger, to thirst, and to medical emergencies that go untreated. The scenes were truly catastrophic. Northern cities, frozen in the midst of January, where entire families fade away from the cold and the apparent safety of their own homes. In the South, a distressed crowd faced the harsh reality of water scarcity as the pumps had stopped working. Hospitals, which used to be refuges of hope, had transformed into morgues, while pharmacies were being raided by desperate people in search of insulin, heart medications, and anything else that could save a loved one's life. And despite being plunged into this abyss of despair, something different caught my attention. I observed communities that, after having faced the first two tragedies, not only managed to endure but also thrived. "Look at this town in Missouri," Jesus said, pointing enthusiastically. There, before my eyes, was a group that had undergone a remarkable transformation after the arrival of the first darkness. They had erected windmills to grind grain, dug wells by hand, and organized community gardens. In addition, they dedicated themselves to training both young and old in ancestral skills, such as blacksmithing and carpentry. When the third darkness settled in, its arrival went almost unnoticed. Not only did they manage to survive, but surprisingly, they found ways to live even better than before. They have learned to trust in me and in each other, leaving behind the dependence on systems that can fail, Jesus explains. And that is what I long for my people. Not a forced return to primitive life, but a return to the essential. I wish for us to once again value community, simplicity, and trust in myself. It was at that moment that he began to offer me precise instructions on how to prepare myself and how to teach others to do the same in the face of these three events. Jesus revealed to me that the preparations would vary according to each period of darkness. For the first one, which will occur in December, people should focus on the essentials: food, water, heating, and security. August 2nd will mark a crucial moment to strengthen our community and reflect on long-term sustainability. However, by the time January 3rd arrives, it will be imperative that we have achieved total self-sufficiency, even prepared to contribute to the rebuilding of civilization. He shared with me a detailed plan for September 2025. It is essential that you start with the basics. Make sure to stock enough food and water for 3 months. If you have the opportunity, acquire a classic car from the 70s. If not, at least consider buying bicycles. Additionally, it is important that you withdraw money from the bank and strengthen your ties with your neighbors. As we move towards October 2025, it is crucial that you reinforce your preparedness. Take time to learn how to grow and preserve food, and don't forget to practice basic healthcare skills. I also encourage you to form community groups focused on preparedness, where you can share knowledge and resources. Imagine a challenge that will lead you to live without electricity for a few days. In November 2025, the countdown to the first darkness begins. It is time to make the final adjustments. Install wood-burning heat sources, prepare warm clothing, and make sure to have extra blankets on hand. Don't forget to establish communication plans with your loved ones and keep extra supplies to share in case of need. On December 15, 2025, when the sun rises, it will be your last opportunity to be prepared. Fill all the containers you have with water and acquire anything else you may need. Gather with your family and trusted friends, for together you will face what is to come. Seek spiritual preparation through prayer and repentance. From January to July 2026, a favorable time presents itself to recover from the first darkness, but also to prepare for the arrival of the second. It is an ideal period to strengthen communities, acquire new skills, and offer help to those who were not ready. On August 21st, 2026, the second darkness will begin. Those communities that organize and work together will have the opportunity to survive and serve others. From September 2026 to January 2027, we enter the final phase of preparation. It is time to achieve total independence, to produce local energy, learn to manufacture what is necessary, and develop a community defense. On January 15, 2027, the third darkness will arrive. Only those who have prepared for years will be ready to stand firm in the face of this trial. However, Jesus made it clear that all of this is just half of what really matters. Physical fitness is important, Mike, but the spiritual is vital. It is what truly saves. It is about having a heart aligned with me. People need to repent now, not wait for the crisis to come. They must accept me as their Savior and learn to fully trust in me. I spoke with intensity. I want you to learn to truly pray, not just quick prayers before meals, but deep conversations with me about every aspect of your life. I want you to read my word daily, not just on Sundays. I want you to forgive those who have hurt you, because holding on to resentment in difficult times will destroy you from within. I want you to build authentic relationships with other believers, people you can trust when everything gets out of control. Then he showed me something that took my breath away. After the third darkness, I saw the United States in a process of reconstruction, but in a completely new way. This process would take years, but what emerged would be stronger and more humane. Jesus said, "People will learn to depend on each other and on me. Technology will return, but this time with wisdom. Communities will be united, families will be strong, and the church will finally be what it was always meant to be, the heart of community life." I saw cities where churches were not just Sunday buildings, but true centers of community. In that place, practical skills were taught, resources were shared, and decisions were made collectively. The believers lived simply, valuing relationships above positions. "This is my plan, Mike," Jesus said firmly. "I am going to use the darkness to restore my people, to break their dependence on failed systems and to generate trust in me who never fails." However, his expression became serious. Not everyone will believe it. Many will mock it, calling it extremism, a conspiracy. They will trust the government, trust technology. That's why I send them back with specific information, signals and instructions. The clearer the warning, the more likely it is that some will listen. He held me tightly by the shoulders and looked me in the eyes. "When you return, some will believe you instantly. Others will say you have gone crazy. Some will start to prepare, while others will wait to see the auroras in December, and then panic will set in. But tell everyone, Mike, I love you more than you can imagine. I don't want anyone to die. That's why I give you these warnings now while there is still time." I felt a force pushing me back. But Lord, what if they don't believe me? What if I can't convince them? He smiled with tenderness and sadness. "You are not responsible for convincing anyone, only for being true when conveying the message. I will make sure it reaches those who need it. And remember, darkness is not the end. It is the beginning of the greatest spiritual awakening in history. Those who prepare and persevere will see my glory in a way that times of comfort never could." The attraction became irresistible, and I felt my spirit being drawn back. As the vision faded, and the echo of his voice resonated in my mind, "You are never alone. I will always be with you, and whoever trusts in me will not be put to shame, not even in the most difficult moments." Suddenly I opened my eyes with a desperate gasp. I found myself in a hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines. My supervisor, Jack, seemed to have aged 20 years. A nurse, visibly shaken, was checking my vital signs. "Mike, my God, you're back," Jack said, tears streaming down his face. "You were unconscious for days. Monsieur Ribeiro, the doctors didn't think you would survive." Suddenly, a doctor burst into the room, flipping through my scans in astonishment. "Mr. Theodore, this is impossible," he exclaimed. "You suffered a severe trauma in the accident and were without oxygen for an extended period. You should have irreversible damage, but here you are, talking to me." The doctor entered the room looking at me as if I were a ghost. "Mr. Theodore, your heart has been stopped for over a year. For an hour, we recorded a total absence of brain activity that lasted almost 6 hours. According to any medical criteria, I should be dead. And yet here you are, lucid and talking to me. In my 30 years of career, I had never witnessed anything like this. However, I was aware that I was no longer the same man who had steered the helm toward tomorrow. Physically, yes, my recovery was surprisingly quick, difficult to explain. but deep within my being, my soul had undergone a radical transformation. I had glimpsed the future, looked into Jesus' eyes, and he had entrusted me with a mission that now burned within me with an urgency I could not ignore. During the first week, every time I tried to talk about what I had experienced, tears would well up in my eyes. They were not tears of sadness, but rather a reflection of the profound impact of the love I experienced and the powerful revelation of what Jesus showed me. Every time I tried to describe our meeting and the visions of those 3 dark places, emotion overwhelmed me, causing the words to escape me in sobs. Little by little, I began to open up. First, I shared my thoughts with Jack, my supervisor, who quickly sensed that something profound had transformed my being. Then, I extended my words to the neighbors, and soon, I found myself conversing with the pastor of a small local church. He listened to me in astonishment, paying attention to every detail of my story. Within days, my testimony began to resonate. First, it spread among the local Christians, and then it extended through radio stations, YouTube channels, and religious websites across the country. Some accepted it immediately and began to prepare enthusiastically. Others laughed, claiming that he was delusional due to the trauma of the accident. However, something moving began to happen. Entire communities came together in a collective effort. The churches sprang into action, organizing workshops on food storage, water purification, basic health care, and most importantly, spiritual preparation. In the past few weeks, I've had the opportunity to visit all the congregations and groups that have extended an invitation to me. I have shared my story on numerous occasions, fervently repeating the same details: the precise dates, the practical instructions, and most importantly, the spiritual transformation that is urgent and necessary at this moment. I have had the opportunity to meet families who decided to sell their houses in the suburbs to move to rural communities. There, they have found a new lifestyle in which they can grow their own food, harvest what they plant, and provide mutual support. I have also witnessed how some churches have completely transformed their approach, dedicating themselves to teaching not only practical survival skills, but also to deepening spiritual life. However, I also encountered resistance. Some Christians accused me of instilling fear instead of faith. The pastors, for their part, refused to listen, claiming that God would never allow such calamities to happen. Others simply labeled me as crazy. To them, I respond, I didn't ask for this. I wasn't the one who sought this burden. I would give anything to return to my yard, enjoying a coffee and reflecting on trivial things. I cannot deny what I witnessed. I cannot pretend as if Jesus was just a dream. I cannot remain silent about something that could save millions of lives. The sign he revealed to me is approaching. On December 15th, 2025, the auroras will illuminate skies we have never before contemplated. And when the green lights begin to dance over Dallas or Atlanta, people will have 6 days to prepare for the arrival of the first darkness. Today is September 7, 2025, which means there are only 105 days left until everything begins. There is enough time for those who decide to start now, but not for those who choose to postpone it until tomorrow. For this reason, I make an important request. Starting today, make sure to store enough food and water for 90 days for each member of your household. Ensure you have savings available. If possible, consider purchasing a classic car, preferably one from before 1980, or at least acquire bicycles. Cultivate friendship with your neighbors, as a good community is invaluable. Additionally, learn techniques for preserving food, managing minor wounds, and, of course, do not forget the importance of growing your own garden. These skills will not only be useful to them, but they will also strengthen their connection with the environment and those around them. Practice the experience of living without electricity for a few days. Make sure to have everything prepared for November. But above all, focus on preparing your heart. Listen sincerely, read the Word, forgive, seek reconciliation, and strengthen the bonds with your brothers in faith. And when you behold the dawn, gather your loved ones around you. Be strong, not just to survive, but also to serve. Because it's not only about enduring the darkness, but about allowing yourself to be transformed by it. God does not send these times to destroy, but to awaken. Those who persevere will have the opportunity to glimpse a light brighter than any that has ever illuminated the skies. You can choose to ignore it, convinced that all of this is nothing more than the delusion of a truck driver who is on the brink of death on the road. You can interpret my recovery as a medical miracle. You might laugh at the dates, but you could also think that it is the hand of God acting in my life. He loves you more than you can imagine and is knocking at your door right now. It's not to scare you, but to save you. My name is Mike Kyodor, and 3 weeks ago I experienced something extraordinary. I lost my life in an accident and was breathless for more than 14 hours. During that time, I had a shocking encounter. I came face to face with Jesus. He returned to me with a strong warning. The first darkness will manifest on December 21st, 2025, at 3:33 a.m. Pacific Time. The second darkness, on the other hand, took place on August 21st, 2016, at midnight, Eastern Time. Third darkness, January 15th, 2017, across the continental territory. An urgent call resonates. Millions will lose their lives if they do not pay attention. However, there is a light amidst this darkness, as millions will also awaken. You will know Christ and join the greatest spiritual revival that history has ever witnessed. The decision is crucial. Time is running out. What will you choose? What a profound and urgent testimony. The Bible warns us in the book of Amos, chapter 4, verse 12, "Prepare yourself, O Israel, to meet your God." It's not just about anticipating tragedies, but about preparing your heart, restoring your faith, and living with a clear purpose. Mike, we thank you for sharing this transformative experience with us that has impacted our lives, and for reminding us that even in darkness, God can work to awaken souls. And to you who have been with us until the end, may the blessings of heaven flood your home, your mind, and your spirit. We will meet in the next video. Stay strong, prepare yourself, and keep serving.